All right, welcome everybody to episode 1 of 4 Point Play, brought to you by me, Matt Heuser from Swish Scouting. And alongside me, we have.
Hey, listen, it's Robert Alfonso, man, and man, I'm excited about our 4 Point Play podcast. Hey,
All right.
listen, technical difficulties and always the first stumbles out the gate. No worries.
Well, say a couple of old guys here trying to do some new technology stuff, so probably two of the old guard here. And then also
Absolutely.
joining us today, our guest. Pleased to have him with us for this 45 minutes of madness. We have Coach Donald Watkins from McDonough High School. Warhawks went to the Final Four this past year in 4A, and he'll be joining us for today's episode. So we're super excited to have our first episode be with somebody who's very highly regarded in the basketball community. So today we got a couple things for us. When we do 4 Point Play, we're always going to have 4 topics we're going to cover in our time together. We did a poll on Twitter over the last week or so talking about the new GHSA policy, I guess you could call it, tied to student transfers and eligibility. So we're going to dive into that for a little bit. We have an interview segment lined up with Coach Watkins. We're going to talk a little bit about June. Like, what does June look like for the typical high school basketball program here in the state of Georgia, where teams are basically locked into getting the June 30-day window to play together and go out and compete before AAU season kind of picks back up in July. And then we're going to talk about maybe some players we saw during the month of June. Swish Scouting, we had 158 varsity teams this summer that came to a Swish Scouting circuit event. One of those was the big one at McDonough High School, first weekend of June. We're going to dive into that. And we're going to talk about top players we saw between myself and Alfonso, Mr. Robert Alfonso, I should say. And, we saw over 300 games. It was a lot of basketball in June, 158 teams in person. We got a lot to talk about over that time frame. And players we saw, some familiar faces, some new young faces that showed up and showed out during the summer. And then we're also going to get into some of our sleepers at the end here for our final segment today. Some guys that have kind of come out of nowhere, for lack of better terms, that really impressed. And, were guys that caught our attention, but more importantly, caught attention of some college coaches as well, based on our reports from over the summer, June circuit event. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about for our time together here for our first episode. And so without further ado, we're going to get right into it. Our first point is our segment, Swish or Miss. Okay, we put a poll out for about a week or so for anybody to vote and talked about the new policy mostly revolving around transfers, right? A kid that's already been in high school somewhere and now they want to transfer into another school here in Georgia. That's a GHSA member, I should point out. And new policies that make the transfer maybe a little harder, maybe the right words to use. And it was very obvious to me right away when we put this out that this is a really touchy subject for some people.
It's the third rail effect on the train subject. You know what I mean? Like people get have a lot of opinions about it, and we saw there was a great divide in the state.
Yeah, we really are state divided on this. It was close to 50-50. I think, the poll online, I think it was like 53-47. But what was really eye-popping for me was I put it out there, and yeah, we had about 100 or so votes online, but there was at least another 100 coaches who didn't want to vote. They wanted to remain secretive in their opinion on this, and that's fine. Everyone's entitled to do it their way. But I had some coaches that texted me a blanket, like mile-long text explaining their whole, thoughts or feelings on this. I had some coaches where they texted me their response, and then 2, 3, 4 hours later, texted me more, backing up, like they going back and putting some more thought into this whole thing. And then I had some coaches that even called me because they didn't want. I can't have a trail at all, right? Here's my opinion, but I don't want anybody seeing how I feel about this. And so, like this is a very important topic to people. And one of the things that's very obvious to me is we're never going to come to common terms on this thing. Like
No,
there's too many people on far ends of the spectrum on where they view what the rules should and shouldn't be, or if there should be any rules at all in some cases. But if you look at it, what are people over here saying compared to what people over there are saying? It was very common to see a response of someone who was a naysayer that we're going to lose kids to prep schools if we stay with this policy. And I guess what's your thoughts on that, Alfonso?
Well, I mean, the thing, first of all, you made an excellent point. So many coaches have an opinion about this, and it's opinions that have been discussed behind closed doors, opinions that have had conversations among coaches when they get together, whether it's through the month of June. And ironically, since we are talking about the month of June, that's where a lot of it happens. A lot of it happens after certain events, and coaches are able to see players, and some families don't feel like they're getting enough time in the summertime, and they end up looking to other situations. As far as losing kids, first, there's a new age in sports right now. Matt, you and I have talked about it in private, but there's a lot of families looking for an alternative for their kids. If it's not being able to stay in the state, they're looking for other options, and those other options are prep schools, and they're providing other means to play on a national schedule, quote unquote, or other means for longer training. There isn't much restrictions in being able to train or gym access. I mean, I worked in one in Florida. Trust me, we didn't have many bumpers that we had to deal with. So understand, like, a lot of people are gonna certainly have opinion. And ironically, since that ruling, we've lost a significant number of kids already to some prep schools, out of state, or even within state at another entity. And just being able to, families are just seeing, like, how is the state able to dictate what I do with my child, right? How is the state able to dictate? Because, as I've mentioned to you, Matt, kids don't transfer. Families transfer. A kid can have an opinion, and based on what the family is willing to do, that's who ends up transferring. Because the kid can't sign in for an apartment on his own. The kid can't withdraw himself really on his own without being of age. So that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, when the first couple coaches texted me back about the prep school piece, at first I was like, "Oh, this is terrible." Like, yeah, you're right. We can't lose these kids. That came from a place of selfishness, I would say, for me. Like, these are our top players. We cover the sport. But when I talk to some prep schools that I communicate with, and I heard the amount of money being thrown out with NIL now being a thing, that's generational wealth right there in some cases, where I'm not going to be. Who am I to tell a family you need to stay at high school X when you're being offered, life-changing money and, more exposure and all those other things that go along with it. And so, I'm torn as far as swish or miss. I think it's a swish on the concept of having a rule, right? Like,
Okay.
there's got to be some sort of law and order to these things. I feel like, but I feel like it's a miss in terms of what the actual rule is itself is right now, just because it feels rushed when you read, like, the language on it. There's always going to be weird circumstances that come up.
Well,
There were a
let's
lot of
talk
coaches
about that language.
Yeah, there were a
Let's
lot,
talk
well,
about
a
that
lot
language.
of coaches that made the comment, like, this rule is going to hurt kids who are trying to do it the right way, such as military families or migrant worker families. And there's a lot of people who live in gray areas, right? And they're going to always find those gray areas to live in, no matter what you do. I mean, we had one coach who communicated to me that unless this is passed by state legislature, there's always going to be attorneys who are out there to overturn policies and rules anyway, and take words and twist them, so to speak, which I thought was an interesting comment. And so I think it's a start, but there's more refining to it that needs to be looked at so that people who are trying to do it the right way aren't hurt. Because when it comes to policies, I've always had we talked about this before, the stance that there's three things that jump out for me on these things. Like, who is this for? Who does it help? And is it good for kids?
And that's where that part where if it's good for kids, all these kids, especially the parents, they want to see their kid flourish. They want to see their child have a tremendous high school experience. Whatever that looks like, it's different for every family, right? But here's another thing that isn't necessarily being discussed. Let's say a family owns land, real estate, whatever, in one particular school district, okay, and chooses to then, again, it's land that they own, things that they own, but they live in another county, and they choose to, yes, move their child over. They've not done anything illegal because they have the property. It's just because a lot of that's what's being lost as well, and it's affecting people who are not able to make those identification changes, who may lose a job somewhere, who may be forced to move because they go from North Georgia to South Georgia to go work, but they're still unable to sell their house, their previous home, which is still in their name, which is based on the lettering and the wording, and then they try to enroll their child in school. Or even worse yet, you have a situation where it's the summertime, and sometimes we all know when it's the summertime, it's a scarce staff within our central offices. So a family rolls in there, tries to do the things the right way, come back, and here we are, the middle of July, and the kid still hasn't found the school, primarily because the person that they need to get the answers for may not have been there, or the hours that the school district may be open, or schools may be open, maybe from 9 to 3, and that family is not able to get there within those times, or whatever the case may be, to be able to provide the identifying paperwork. So
Swish or miss?
I think it's a miss, to be honest with you. Because as you mentioned, it's certainly something that is being rushed and hasn't necessarily been thought about. You're not going to have all the right answers, but there's still too many loose pieces around, that you're not going to get the potentially more onto the road responses. How do you solve a family moving, from one area to another because of a job loss? They'll be like, oh, provide and prove that. You don't necessarily have to. You shouldn't have to, because that's not anyone's business.
Coach Watkins,
but I agree. I don't mind.
Yeah, I want to hear Coach Watkins. And you don't have to, dive into this. You don't want to. We know it's a touchy subject in the coaching community, but you're in Henry County, right? A lot of moving and shaking as far as talent usually down that way. Have you seen anything since the ruling that has been different than maybe status quo, or has it been kind of business as usual across, what you've seen down your way? Or are people actually taking this into consideration with your decisions?
I think a lot of coaches, not just in Henry County, but the state as a whole, have been kind of slower to how they've been operating just because of this period of uncertainty. Definitely want to keep the kids' best interests in mind, and don't want to move in a way that could jeopardize a year of eligibility or opportunities for a kid. So right now, I think all coaches are kind of just, waiting on additional information from the state before any movement. So,
okay, yeah. I mean,
what I found interesting in some cases, some families were already, quote unquote, having their own movement tryouts, if I were to just be honest, that they were playing with one team one week, and then miraculously they was on another team the following week. And again, you really can't punish a family for even trying that, right? So they've done that.
I would say the biggest eye opener from reading the 200 plus messages I got from coaches, besides the prep school piece, was this automatic association with good coaching versus collecting or amassing amounts of talent, if that makes sense. Like, there was a lot of people who were like, we need this rule, it's going to find out who the good coaches are now. And I was like, well, I mean, just because you have a lot of talent on your team doesn't mean you're not a good coach. I mean, there's
Correct.
some guys who are good coaches who have no talent, or some guys that are good coaches who have a ton of talent. But there was definitely an association between the two of those things from a lot of people who were for it. But I mean, there's something to say about that, right? Like, a great coach once told me, he was a Hall of Fame college basketball coach. He said, Matt, there's two types of coaches in this world. There's coaches who've coached great players, and there's ex-coaches. So maybe something to say about X's and O's versus Jimmy's and Joe's. But it's one of those things.
But
I think it's
always
going to
is
take
nice
a
to
couple
have.
years.
It's nice to have a bunch of Jimmys and Joes that can play, though.
Right? So, with that being said, we're going to transition into our interview here of Coach Watkins. We're super thankful to have you here with us today. When you start out a podcast, usually you start with somebody who's on the B roll, but we got some A roll material here to kick off our podcast. We got Coach Watkins of the McDonough Warhawks, who went to the Final Four this past year in his first year as head coach. I mean, some guys would retire after a year of doing that and say they went to a Final Four every year in their career. None of this, no. But thank you for joining us today, and for point 2 of our 4-point play. And I guess I want to lead out and talk about your team. Obviously, you guys graduated a lot of seniors who leaders on your team this past year. The twins are going off to college, and then obviously the big man in the middle, Thad's heading over to Alabama for college next year. But the cupboard's not bare over at McDonough. We got some players still in the mix. We got Carrington. Moore over there is going to be a sophomore, who was one of the more exciting 2028s I saw this summer, and played well throughout the course of June and was definitely a standout player. And definitely some other key pieces around him as well coming back, that McDonough is still here. But Coach Watkins, you were the winner, I use that in parentheses, of hosting Georgia's largest varsity basketball tournament this summer that was not held at Lake Point. I'm talking about the Georgia June Jam, first weekend of June, that was right at your home spot there at McDonough High School. And maybe talk to us about, just go behind the scenes for us, right? Like, what does it look like as the head coach of a school that you got this massive event that we had teams? I mean, there was one match I saw, we had Calhoun County from down by the Panhandle playing Savannah High School. Everybody, it's like, wow, that's crazy, right? And so what as the head coach of the building, what does that look like to host an event that has over 50 teams coming from all corners of Georgia?
For sure. First of all, thank you for having me on the first episode of 4-Point Play. Definitely a blessing to have this opportunity. And it was great to host one of the first events of summer and one of the largest events of summer here in Georgia. And staying in line with 4-Point Play, I have 4 points for what went into that event. So first of all, there was a lot of planning. Not just the basketball side of things, but for those teams that were coming from all corners of the state, finding what hotels would be available if they needed lodging, or what restaurants were in the area. Obviously, for you reaching out and finding high quality refs to run an event like that. There's a lot of events that go on during the summers in Georgia, and officiating can make or break an event. And so we had some great officiating. having parents involved, having your whole program involved. So in order to run an event like that, there's a lot of pieces from all around within your organization and the pieces that are out. We had Baller TV that was out, so we had 4 courts with games being filmed all day long. So you don't see that at a lot of events. So it was a lot of planning that went in. That was the first thing. Then 2, this was an event where we fielded the whole event with competitive teams. All right, so you see events where things are a money grab and you just let any and everybody in just because you're looking to make as much money as possible. But this was planned in mind with making sure the talent was even, and it was beneficial for all teams and coaches and players participating. Which takes me into my third point. While all the teams that were invited were competitive, Swish Scouting did a great job of using in-depth player and team analysis to evenly schedule the matchups and place teams within pools. So there wasn't any major blowouts. So teams were, evenly matched the way that events should be. And then the last point that I really liked about the first event we had in June is that scheduled game times were desirable for teams that were playing more than one game in a day. So most coaches, I would hope, love the play, sit, play method, where you come in, you play a game, you sit for a game, let your body recover, and then you play and you're done for the day. So that was a really big hit for the first event of June.
Well, Coach, thank you for saying that and definitely opening your doors to us. What did you feel that your team got out of playing this first event and being able to not only host, but certainly then get your focus back onto the hardwood?
Yeah, so playing within a pool, it allows you to not only focus on the opponent at hand, but also see who your upcoming matchups are. So it allows you a time to kind of scout your opponent during the summer without going in blind. There's a lot of events where you're just going in blind. You don't have the time or the film to see who you're playing up next. So this type of format helped us out there. Repeat your second part of your question for me, Robert.
Just how did it help you guys as a team? Because yes, you did a great job organizing your players to run the clock or do some of the things that, again, most teenagers don't think of doing.
Yeah.
So then they have to turn around and go play a game, because I was impressed with the way your kids was checking their phones to see where they were scheduled to be at next because of something that you helped prepare them for.
Yes, so I definitely cannot take credit for that. I have an amazing staff. I'm one of probably a few coaches that have 5 assistant coaches, and so I had one coach, Coach Tavares Kenny, who's been with me for 2 years now. He made sure to stay on top of making sure guys were where they needed to be at the right time. He sent a schedule out before each day, made sure that we had people up in the concession stand, not just for the, on the courts. We had the clock, we had the shot clock, we had the stats. So it was we spent a lot of time into playing. It's not something that you can just up and decide in a day that you're going to do it. It did take a lot of planning. So shout out to my assistant coaches, shout out to my program. They made that event something a lot of people want to come back to next year.
And that was going to be on to my next point. What kind of feedback did you get from your peers in regards to this inaugural event and the way it was set up?
Nothing but compliments and positivity. There's a lot of coaches that have said, I've had talks with Matt and I've heard on my own, a lot of coaches want to host something like this at their school, but they have to have the realization that there is a lot of planning and a lot of hard work that goes into it. You can't just, like I said, decide that you're going to have an event like this in a day and it happens. It's a lot of planning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of logistics to these things that people don't realize it's bigger than just basketball when it comes to doing these things. You're entertaining people, right? So for days or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that, but now I want to put you on the spot here. Usually people ask us this question. We're going to put you on the spot. You play a lot of games in June. Best player you played against?
Yeah. Best player that I played. I have a list of players that were solid, but the best player I would say I played against, who unfortunately is not in the GHSA like we were talking about earlier, but Blaze Johnson from Grayson has a bright future. We played Grayson over at Georgia State's team camp, and he has a really bright future. Obviously, he's moved on to OTE. But there was I have a list of players that I just thought had a good summer and good time, especially against us. Got Tyler Jones from Locust Grove, Jackson Ushery, Southwest DeKalb. Griffin had a few good players we played against: Damari Bailey, Jordan Mays, Jace Touchstone, Eric Thornton at Woodland, Sterling Pritchett at Tucker, and Amari Medin at Rita. And those were players that played in a lot of the Swish events. And then outside of Swish, I already mentioned Blaze Johnson. Marcus Curry at Grayson was good. And then two last ones. Denise Osbeck at St. Francis had a really good showing against us, as well as Jake Mihalik from Habersam Central. Those were some of the top names that I saw against us this summer.
How about a kid you guys played against this summer that made you go, who's that? Like someone you ever never seen or heard about before that was like, this kid was really good.
Definitely Amari Medin from Redan. And the reason people haven't heard about him or seen him yet is because he is a 2029. He'll be a freshman this year. So that's a special kid that Georgia's going to see a lot of for the next 4 years.
Yeah, they came to Collins Hill, I think. Collins Hill. And
No, they were in Columbia.
okay, oh my gosh, I mean, you talk about a kid.
They were in
that-
Columbia.
It's like a video game, watching him
Yes.
shoot the ball. Like I was like, geez, this kid's
Yeah.
pulling up from the volleyball line
From
like,
wherever he wants.
like he's done it a million
Exactly.
times, right? So, all right, that's
He
good.
is years ahead of his age.
Yeah. So, switch gears here now, kind of reflecting on June. So, you played in a couple of Swish events this summer, and so how does playing in the Swish circuit, various locations. Obviously, we're fortunate to host an event this summer. Kind of help your players' trajectory or exposure, and how is it maybe different than other platforms or events you've seen? If you want to comment on that or participate in it.
Yeah, so I'm going to hit you with 4 points again for the nature of the podcast. I thought that Swish has in-depth analysis of teams and then for players individually, unlike any other platform I've seen. This is because, you have scouts such as Matt Heuser and Robert Alfonso and a host of other guys that actually sit in and watch these games. Not just following social media. They're sitting in and watching these games and writing up and keeping their own stat sheet while they're paying attention. 2, Swish has a direct access to college coaches. So I know Swish Scouting puts out a yearbook. They put out their top 100. So it's data that these college coaches are able to go in and see for themselves. When you got colleges from California to Baltimore, all across the nation, it's easy to log into a platform and see what's available in the Peach State. So that's number 2. Number 3, the thing I love about Swish is that it's a wide scope that focuses on the state as a whole rather than historically featured teams. So we know we got teams in Georgia that everybody knows. You got your Graysons, your Miltons, your Wheelers, teams that everybody is aware of on a national scale. But there's a lot of teams that people just don't know about and they'll never hear about unless someone is putting them on a platform. So really love that statewide we're getting coverage from corner to corner. And then lastly, it's built centered around the student athletes to benefit the student athlete rather than built in a model that is a money grab for adults or for companies. So in 2025, it's rare that you see, in something that's for kids where it's built around the kids. Today is about profit. And so the fact that we still have a company that is, focusing on the kids and the trajectory of kids is beautiful to see.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're old, right, Fonz? We're a couple
Absolutely.
old dudes. Like,
Absolutely.
we come from an era where this was all paper pencil, and Twitter was something that a bird did. But we're learning. But I had a college coach that came up to me at Collins Hill, and he says, "I gotta tell you something." He's like, "You actually watch the games?" And I was like, "Well, what else would I be doing?" And he goes, "You'd be amazed how many other platforms I go to where I see guys that are scouting games who are on their phones and doing other things and not really paying attention." And I guess those are things I don't pay attention to because I'm so caught up in the game, right? And so I appreciate those comments. And we got a lot of kids who play hard and they deserve the opportunity to be seen and have their stories told. I think that's the biggest thing, is that everyone has a story to tell. That when that ball goes up, they get to write their story. For however amount of time they're on that court. So,
Absolutely.
So sticking with June, right? Sticking on the theme of June here on this interview. Been some shake-up or changes in the June live period. For in Georgia, what that looks like moving forward. Or maybe some trends or some changes that you foresee maybe happening with varsity teams. Because I talked to a lot of coaches in Georgia from all areas of the state that it was really eye-opening to me from talking to coaches who wanted to play in things this summer that couldn't because either football gets the kids for on days A, B, and C throughout the week, or they don't have enough kids to play in the summer because of other sports or other things happening. We got some new events that are happening in Georgia in the month of June that are maybe impacting other things going on. So what are maybe some trends or some things that are changing from what you see as a coach?
I believe, and this is coming more so from college, like it's out of our control, but I think coaches and teams are going to start shifting towards being in events that get their kids exposure. There's a lot of events that go on in Georgia where you're able to go and play 4 games and then you leave and go home. But there was nothing that anybody got out of that. And it's a state of time where it's harder than ever for a high school kid to get a scholarship or even get into JUCOs in certain places. And so I think for the benefit of kids and for parents to look at coaches and be like, did you get my kid looked at? Coaches are going to start scheduling for their kids to play in these events where they are definitely going to be seen or they're going to show up in a write-up, because that's what it's about. And then secondly, this can be helped by college coaches utilizing the yearbook that you put out, your top 100 available report, player analysis. It's becoming rarer and rarer for colleges to even set their focus on high school kids these days. So these resources definitely help out.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great point you make, because when you start looking at the landscape of things, here we are in the middle of July, and there's some kids who we've seen play this past season who, unfortunately, for whatever reason, are not going off to school, to play at the next level potentially. Whether it's unsold, promises not kept, or unrealistic expectations, or somewhere in the middle. And being able to at least be around individuals who are going to look at the totality of the person, that does help. Like I always tell people, you're asking a college coach to give your kid an offer that they've only seen for 30 minutes, compared to you knowing your child for 17 to 18, 19 years, and then this is where, again, Matt's expertise, my expertise, we're able to then add some more context to what that coach saw, what that coach is looking for, and hopefully it'll lead to an opportunity for the student athlete.
For sure.
Yeah, I one of the weirdest things to me, coming from the north, again, I've lived here less than 5 years now, so I'm still an outsider. I can say this, right? Like, where I'm from, a college team camp is something for AAU teams. And then I come down here and you see high school teams going to college team camps, and that's something very different that I'm not used to seeing guess it goes back to like exposure and who's seeing this and who's this for and who's this help and all those things we talked about before. But yeah, interesting. All right, so Coach Watkins, you have more experience than us, I believe, on podcasting, right? So
I do. This is actually my second podcast in the last 3 months.
okay, so what? Teach a couple of old dogs here some new tricks. Tell us about your podcast you got and where people can find it.
Yeah, so I have a podcast episode coming out on July 28th. It's actually called the Basketball Teacher Podcast. It's a group that's based out of Arizona. It's been going on for a few years, and it's a resource for coaches to hear from other coaches nationwide about things that they have done to benefit their program. So my episode is actually about building a team culture. And so if you can find the Basketball Teacher Podcast, it's on all platforms, Twitter, Spotify, YouTube. The episode will be out July 28th.
Okay. Excellent. Wow, definitely worth a look.
Well, congratulations to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Again, we want to really thank you for taking your time. Obviously, when you're a head coach, there's more things to worry about than just what's happening on a basketball court and all these other things you have to do on top of being you, right? And so thank you for taking the time to share with us these things. It's always, nice to get other people's perspectives on things. Like I said before, everyone has a story to tell, and always interested in what people have to say about things. So, we're not done with you yet, though. We're gonna pick on you a little bit more here throughout the rest of our episodes.
For sure, I'll be here.
All right, so Fonz, we're gonna switch over here. Talk about people are probably interested in here to talk about. We saw 158 teams in June. Who played well, right?
Yes.
So we're gonna talk about the top players we saw, and I guess for me, just because of the spaces we work in behind the scenes, I'm gonna break it down into seniors first, and then we'll kind of talk about everybody else second. I put out my top 100 players from the Swish circuit that were seniors this week, and I also put out a separate list of everybody else, and I had some people ask, why'd you do that? And I was like, well, to be honest with you, a lot of colleges don't pay attention to guys that aren't seniors. I mean, obviously that's a generalization, right? Like, that's not going across everybody, but I do get a lot of people who say to me, like, well, what do you got for seniors? And I'll say, well, I got this junior that's coming up that's pretty good. I'm like, not yet. So we're going to talk about seniors first. It's their time to be in the spotlight. Talking about class of 2026, guys that popped in June. And, I put mine out. I got mine, segmented, so to speak, like I like to do, in terms of, like, top 10 in alphabetical order, move all the way down the line. So I'm going to throw a name out there because I'm super excited about this guy. That I heard stories all winter about this kid, and they came for one day to Griffin High School. I think they came on a Friday night, and they played 2 games and didn't come back on Saturday because they're a small school and had some football issues, I think. Talking about a kid named Champ Simpson from Chattahoochee County High School down by Columbus, Georgia area or so. Maybe he should be on my sleeper list, but he was one of the top 10 kids I saw all of June. Like, just strong. He's got a highlight reel that you go on his Twitter page, it makes you go, what? I mean, I'd heard about him. I watched film on him all winter. I believe he was Offensive Player of the Year in the region this year. Might have been Player of the Year. And just strong, explosive, above the rim perimeter guy. Had a ridiculous step back to his left that nobody was able to stay in front of, for those 2 games that I caught. But I mean, he was a kid that just checked all the boxes, and was really impressed with him. Was better in person than he was on a film, which isn't always the case. And so I'll start out with him. Is there anybody that jumps out at you right away as a top 10, top 20 guy that's the senior you saw from this summer?
I know a lot of coaches are always looking for a good guard, and I think a guy who doesn't get talked about enough in the guard conversation in the class of 2026 is Damari Bailey out of Griffin High School. He's a young man who, when you look at him, sure, he doesn't, he doesn't quote unquote sell the look. Like if he was ironically a little bit more into the Metro, people would know more about him. But because he's in Griffin and Henry County, and this is not a knock on him or the program, they do a great job, and he does a great job. These people got to go out to see him, and when you see him, he can certainly give you everything you would want. And college coaches are starting to take notice, but he's still such a quiet, under talked about prospect, and who helps that team run and finds ways to distribute the rock to a loaded roster. They have a roster where they can go 7, 8 deep, and he manages that like a well-oiled machine because he gets everyone involved. Like there's rarities in the games that we watched that they were one of the few teams that there was a lot of guys in double figures. And it starts because you have a point guard like him who's willing to give the rock up, but then can also make some shots in the process.
Yeah. I had a college coach that said to me, well, what's a typical day for him when he has a bad game? And I had to think about it. Like I've seen him in person the last couple of years probably about a dozen times. And I've never had him see a bad game out of him. Like he might have a game where he scores, 6, 8 points, but he'll have 4 or 5 assists or steal. It's just like he stays right here when he's having a bad game for him. But I mean, he's a very, like you said, he's polished in a lot of ways, and he's kind of been like this mythical figure from Central Georgia, so to speak, last couple of years because people bring up his name quite a bit. And you're right, he's a very good player. And Coach Watkins, you got to coach against him a couple times this summer, so. Played in your guys' summer league. I think you guys ran into them at June Jam. So, like, Damari Bailey, thoughts?
One of the highest motors I've seen from a high school kid. A lot of kids, they'll give it their all on offense, and then they'll fall off on defense, or they'll give it their all on defense and they'll fall off on offense. There's no fall off with this kid. He has a motor that just goes. So. Definitely will be a kid that's a topic of conversation going into this 25-26 season.
Sure. I'm gonna throw another name out there who is from the Columbus, Georgia area, unintentionally, but another kid gonna be a senior, about 6'7", 6'8", lefty. I saw him in person for the first time last year at Lemon Street Classic for Columbus Carver. We're talking about my man Tobias Tolbert. Like, Fonz, you saw him in person at Columbia at the live period event. A tremendous athlete, a great second jump to his game, times the shot block phenomenally, I thought, for a high school kid. The dude will get 4 or 5 swats in a game and you'll never see him in foul trouble, and just has this presence to him when he's out there and he's gotten better. He's gotten better since even December, I would say. And so again, another kid that's just not really talked about a whole lot, but he holds a Division II offer to Columbus State right there in town, and has recently picked up a number of junior college offers as well. Just a kid that's really caught my eye this past summer as a guy that's an instant impact type dude.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, because one thing that I like, which most bigs don't do today, is go contest shots. He's a very 90s, early 2000 kind of rim protector. He's going to go after every possible shot to alter or block. And then he looks to finish above the rim. He looks to, and he's adding to his game in terms of just being able to shoot it. But what I love more than anything is his communication and relatability with his teammates. When you watch him, he's engaged with his teammates, and I kind of joked with someone, and I hope when he hears this he doesn't grab any offense to it, but he reminds me of a Jameis Winston personality. He's just like, hey, I'm here with my friends, we're having a good time. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always like in control of the moment, that even when I went to walk past him and one of his teammates, I could hear him tell his teammate, yo, they're going to come talk to you. And I was just like, you know what? He's self-aware about the others on the team, and it isn't always about him when it could easily be about him, and that's a level of humility most teenagers don't display these days.
That's all good things that translate well to a leader, right? So,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
how about other guy you got? One of your top tenors for the summer.
I'll be I'll be honest with you. Like when you think about just guys that really popped off the page, Carlin Jacobs out of Columbia. Man, I hadn't seen Columbia this year, so that's on me. But what I saw from him this summer, and it's not just from the June Jam, it was also at Columbia. It was also at, Collins Hill, where we hosted our other stuff. He, no matter what, every time was as consistent as water running through pipes. When you open up the faucet, it was there. You knew he was there. He was going to give you a wow moment. He was going to make a play. And sometimes he went off for 30, sometimes he went off for 20. But even his 10-point performances, he was involved by blocking shots, showing his uber athleticism, being able to get up and down the floor, sometimes even handling the ball, as a secondary, if not a primary ball handler. So when you look at it, and of course, we talk about how do you separate yourself when you're a kid his size, about 6'2", 6'2 and a half. You separate yourself not only by making shots and making plays, but then you display the level of athleticism that he has, and now you become a separator compared to guys in a cluster of guys in that 6'2 and a half, 6'3 range.
Coach Watkins, you guys ran into Columbia this summer at all? No.
Yes, we did over at Griffin.
Okay. Remember Carlin Jacobs? He was number 13.
Yes,
Kid with the dreads.
Yeah, tough.
briefly.
Tough.
I don't know if if there's anything I can speak to about it right now. We played 34 games.
I know.
Well, he's
Listen,
one of those guys though. Like
they all come together.
he's quiet, right? But at the same time,
Okay.
you look down at your stat sheet in the middle of the game. It's like this dude has literally done a little, if not a lot, of everything. Like his the amount of deflections he caused on defense, the steals, the way. Listen, I don't care who you are. If you're a college team, a pro team, a high school team, middle school team, I don't care who you are. You got to find ways to score easy baskets to win games. And he's one of those guys that he generates that. Whether it be on the offensive end or the defensive end, he just finds ways to where, like, if somebody takes a mental break, in transition, like the dude just makes you pay for it. And he was one of my favorite guys this summer too. I can't remember where I have him. For sure in my top 20, maybe top 10. But he was consistent, like you said, all June. Like some of these guys, you'd see him really good, and then next weekend you'd see him maybe down. Like he was always right up in here, and that's not surprising given who he's played for. And Coach McCrary was obviously a legendary coach here in the state of Georgia. I want to throw a name out there that is a guy from down south who I've been hearing about for a couple years. I've seen him in person before, but picked up some Division I offers as of late. Big 6'8", 6'9" lefty, Caden Lawson from Tift County. Okay, Tift County's under some new leadership now. We got Charles coming over to the good side, right, of the state line here in Georgia, and coming over from Phoenix Central. But Caden Lawson, saw him on the EYCL circuit this spring as well with Georgia Stars. Like, I don't know if I saw a dude from the right block who has as tough of a left hook to defend as he does. Like, he's got a couple Division I offers. I know Merrimack was one of them I saw. But, like everything else aside, you got a 6'8", 6'9", athletic, strong dude who plays football. He's got a Division I offer for, I think he's a tight end to Florida Atlantic also. Like, he was just, really, really difficult to move as well. And he's not thick by any means. He's athletic, but
No, he's not.
he just gets it done from that right block. He's just really tough to defend. But he's also going back to rim protection, he was easily one of the top 3 shot blockers I saw all summer as well. He's got some great leaping abilities as well. So some things I saw from him.
Great one right there, because again, Tift County, traditionally strong basketball school that have produced some quality players. I can recall Chodrick Jackson, who went to Georgia Tech many, many years ago. I know I'm aging myself here, but he certainly excelled when he was down in Tift County. A guy I want to bring up is certainly a guy that didn't play with us in the June Jam, but his team came and played at Collins Hill, and it's Vincent Cray, who's about 6'7". And honestly, when I saw him, I thought it was just an anomaly of a kid who really just, he's just going to bang and not care. But then he steps out and he can shoot the 3. He can handle the ball a little bit. He has decent court vision. He reminds me of the Wolf kid who just got drafted by the Brooklyn Nets, at the same stage. Not, maybe not as polished, but certainly can get to some polishing. And he brings such a skill set that so many coaches are always seeking when it comes to players that they're looking to recruit. He rebounds, he blocks shots, he plays hard, he looks for teammates, and he actually even communicates with the coach of what is working and not working. And it doesn't always mean that it has to come to him. It's more of like, okay, this is working and this is what I see, and maybe we could try something different in the process. And a lot of that goes to the fact that I learned after talking with him, he was a 6-foot point guard, if that. 5'11" point guard, all of a sudden had this growth spurt over the summer, and he kept his skills, but now he's 6'7", 6'8", with guard skills, as well as being able to go play inside and play off of 2 feet.
Yeah, no, he had that 30-point game against Woodland. I remember they're like, okay, he hit the first 3, and they're like, okay. Then he hit the second 3, and they're like, oh. Then he hit the third
Yes.
3, and they're like, okay. So, I mean,
Right.
He'd be a kid, man. You talk about, like, skill-wise, would thrive in some sort of, like, Princeton chin type system where he can
Absolutely.
navigate from that high post area and just play quarterback and hit some shots and pick and pop, pick and roll. Because smart player, skilled player. Again, kind of leading into our next segment about sleepers. Like, yeah, he was one of the biggest names that came out of nowhere this summer. And when I saw Drew Charter play this past winter, he was a kid that stuck out to me on that team. But I mean, talk about growth. Like where he was in February. I think I saw them play to where he is now. Like 2 different players. Like he's really grown. So let's transition now and talk about some guys that kind of came out of nowhere this summer, and some guys that maybe caught our eye that either hadn't heard of before, or maybe, like I said, talk about Vincent Cray, some guys who have shown some tremendous growth from maybe end of season until now. I want to start with a name that is a guy that I had heard about that had not seen in person until I saw them first at McDonough for June Jam, but then I got a healthy dose of them down in Savannah at Beachfront Battle, and that's Jakari Glover from St. Andrews High School right in Savannah. And man, like, you look at him warm up, you're like, this guy's a grown man out there. And
Yes.
in an
Yes,
era where everybody's looking to get older because they need guys that can physically match, right, the older guys that are coming in the transfer portal. Like he's there. Like he can physically match those older kids, because I'll tell you what, on a high school court, I don't see a lot of people that can physically match him. I mean, he's explosive, he's strong, he's got really good hands. He can score in a variety of ways. He can shoot it from all 3 levels. I mean, I saw him 3 times down in Savannah. I saw him twice at McDonough, and he had a double-double all 5 games I saw him play in person. You're probably a little more familiar with his game than I am, Alfonso. But
Well, when you first look at him, yes, the impression is that's a grown man. Then the second thought is, what position does he play in football? And then you learn he doesn't play football, which is rare in the state of Georgia for a kid that size.
Yeah.
Okay? A kid that size and that strong to be able to walk through St. Andrews hallway and not have to throw on shoulder pads, it says a lot about his commitment to the game, and certainly a way that he utilizes that to his advantage on the hardwood. Another guy that I think is a sleeper, and part of it is location, is Hayes Freeze from Raven County High School.
Nice
A
pick.
6'7" wing who can play inside and out, and he's primarily more of a face-up four, very good stretch four. He's not afraid to bang; it's just not his forte. But he certainly will stretch the floor. And the way Coach Adcock has that team playing, it fits to his style. They play a lot of perimeter-based games, so he's able to get a lot of shots. His teammates are able to get a lot of shots because that's what they literally shoot a lot of. And then he goes and crashes the boards and either goes to clean it up or gets himself a nice, easy open three, depending on where the closeouts come.
Yeah.
So I just like them, and it's just location. They're located in the as far east region of North Georgia, and it's closer to the North Carolina line. But nevertheless, they certainly have themselves a player that college coaches need to check in on.
Yeah, we were at McDonough for June Jam, and I was looking for him after a game to talk to him about his performance, and I saw this guy out of my right peripherals who had a trucker hat on, it looked like, and some boots and a T-shirt. Oh my God, it looks like him. That is him. He had switched out.
Yep, it is.
Switched out. I'm like, oh man. So, just a north.
He goes back to factory mode quickly.
Yeah, but like spot on. Like he looked the part on the court and just plays hard and length and Swiss Army knife type dude, does a little bit of everything. I'm gonna throw another name out there that completely threw me off. 2026 in Georgia this summer. I didn't see a ton of guys who were just exceptionally, like, way above the standard rebounders. Like, Jakari Glover's up there. But, just that, this guy's going to go out and get you 12, 15 rebounds, type guy. But I did see a kid from Brunswick High School, of all places, Gavin Creel, who did not
get to see him.
Did not play last year as a junior. I think he played in 2 games.
Why's that?
I can't remember the whole story. If you have not seen Brunswick play, Chris Turner is by far one of the best high school basketball coaches in Georgia, by the way. Chris Turner could run a clinic on coaching a basketball team at any level. I mean, he's basically teaching the game in the game on the spot and running their actions and coaching his kids up. He played Division I college basketball, older guy like us, Fonz, but I can't say enough good things about how Chris Turner runs a basketball team. But Gavin Creel, not only did he have the best 2 dunks at the Savannah tournament, but the dude averaged in 4 games 14 rebounds a game down there, and just super strong, relentless motor. Like, the dude would play a whole game and he's just ready to keep going. Like, he just doesn't stop. And going back to the guys that take mental breaks, which are very common amongst high school kids, where it's like, I'm in transition, I can take a break. There's no break with that kid. He's going after every rebound. He's got a good wingspan on him. He's not big. He's 6'4", maybe 6'5" with shoes, but he plays with some good explosiveness. He had a dunk where he caught actually, I think there's a video of it on Twitter somewhere from the tournament, where he caught it on the right wing outside the 3-point line, and in one dribble, legally, got to the rim and hammered on some kid. And I'm just like, oh man, he's more athletic than he even presents himself to be.
Right.
But he came out of nowhere, and again, really good rebounder, good finisher at the rim, good strength. he checks a lot of boxes for next level stuff, and he's definitely going to get good coaching this season under Chris Turner's leadership down there. So,
look, you're going to have to indulge me here with my selection here, because I'm going two of them here, because they're future prospects.
okay.
And one of them, their coach is sitting here with us right now, and that's the 2028 Carrington Moore. You know, I really, really like the future that kid holds. I mean, we can talk about his scoring, we can talk about, the way he's able to attack the basket. These are things that we can see that he does exceptionally well, because I'm sure he works on that. But the fact that there was one time he threw a sequence of passes that got teammates open that I don't think is valued enough when people talk about him. I don't and Coach, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure you've seen some nifty passes by him at practice as well as games. And for 2028, he holds such poise for a kid. I mean, and again, he's still a kid and still a growing and developing young man, but he has a mental makeup that when you watch him, and not just on the floor, it's off the court, he has a mental makeup that you go, what year is that kid in? And you go, wait a minute. When he told me he was a 28, I was actually surprised. Because I thought I would have guessed no younger than a 27. And I was just like, dude, that kid's going to be all right. Because he, again, plays with the poise that you don't see in kids that age. So, Coach, go ahead and chime in on Moore.
Yeah, he's just he's a student of the game, and he's addicted to the game. He is in the gym as early as 5 a.m. some days, and if we'll have practice in the evening during the year, he'll be in the gym as late as 8 or 9 o'clock. And all of that process within him, that came from his sister. His sister's number, Brooke Moore, is actually retired here at McDonough High School. I think she might have scored 3,000 points in high school. And I wasn't at McDonough yet, but everybody tells me how Carrington was in the gym with the girls basketball team back then, getting shots up, heaving them up from beyond the three-point line as a 10-year-old, 9-year-old kid. So he loves the game, and as long as he keeps that love for the game, it's going to continue growing, and he loves getting his teammates involved. So good player, great player to continue keeping your eye on.
Absolutely. And my next one is a young man who hasn't even taken a class yet in high school, and I walked away relatively impressed with Peyton Easley. I saw him, he's at Mount Perrin. He's an incoming freshman. And I saw him initially at the GBCA one game, and I was like, that kid's got it right. He's got a chance. And next thing you know, a week later, a week or two later, they come to Collins Hill, and I watched the kid literally lead his team in every possible category without showing the things that I saw that first time, because he was, like I tell people, he was very typical middle school, that they feel in order for them to be good, they got to shoot every ball in the gym to be able to show that they can play. And I'm like, he didn't do that. And those were some of the things that I was really impressed with for being able to see him. And then just watching, one thing that translates immediately is his ability to shoot the ball. It's not your normal middle school jump shot that is shot just below the shoulder blades, and because that's where they're the strongest. He literally was shooting it, again, almost textbook, that it will continue to be polished as the more time he spends in the gym.
That's a really good pick for an incoming freshman, because when I saw him play, like, just his poise as an incoming freshman that he played with, like, I don't have to be the guy, but when I have my opportunities to be the guy in the moment, I'm going to take it. And he was efficient and made the most of his time, and that's a really good pick. I'll throw one more name out there for a sleeper before we wrap up. Kyler Johnson from Dodge County. Like, again, when I saw him on film this past season as I was writing the yearbook, probably one of the few kids that I had not heard of before, that I kept watching more and more. Like, really believe what I was seeing in front of me. That I couldn't believe that somebody could really jump like that. And like basketball aside, like, that guy can just jump out the gym. Like, and that's a loose term that people like to use, but I don't think I saw anybody. 158 teams in June. I don't think I saw anybody who can jump like that guy can. And I think I saw yesterday he picked up a D2 offer to Albany State, so I guess he's not as much of a sleeper anymore as he was prior to June. But just a unique talent for a 6'4", 6'5" dude who, I asked him, I said, you do track at all? And he goes, yeah, I jump. I said, how did you do? He's like, I went to state. So, like, not surprising at all. But, like, just, you'll clear a rebound, and he can handle the ball well enough and get out in transition and explode. And he just tries to go dunk on everybody sometimes. And he's picked up some offers in the process. That's not one more, too, I'll throw out there, too, actually, before we wrap up. Is another kid who I really like. 4-year starter on varsity. But his name's coming out there more and more now. A kid from Southwest DeKalb named Thomas Glanton III, who
yes,
some colleges have kind of started reaching out to me about as of late. Who was that? He's that proverbial guy you love to have on your team and absolutely would hate to play against. He just does all.
Well, he's a real poised glue guy. He's a real poised glue guy and runs that team in such a way that when you think you're going to disrupt the Panthers and Southwest DeKalb, you got to start with him, because if you let him just be able to play with the poise that he needs, they're going to be difficult to stop. And it starts with him, as Coach Brown likes to put guys like him in leadership roles for sure.
Yeah. Now, guy you're very familiar with, Coach Watkins. Thomas Glanton. What's on the scouting report? Thomas Glanton III.
Special kid. We played him in the Sweet 16 of last year, Class 4A playoffs, and we had built a big lead here at McDonough. And fourth quarter, he made us very nervous. he got hot in a quick second. So Thomas Glanton, Jackson Ushery over at Southwest DeKalb, they still have a special crew coming back.
Yeah, they're what I'm.
I did have 2 additions for you if you have just another second.
Yeah.
Yes.
What you got?
I got a duo at South Atlanta, Duor and Bo Dane. That group of kids together, when they're both, firing on the same cylinders together, South Atlanta is going to be really good in 2A this year. Saw them at June Jam, and then saw them again at a GBCA event. So they got something special over there.
Yeah, Coach Porter's got a really exciting team this coming season. And that region, I mean, man, I don't know if there's a region in 2A Georgia this year besides them that you could argue every team's got a college-level dude. There's only 6 teams, but, I mean, you look at Columbia's going to be loaded with talent. South Atlanta has the 2 guys you just talked about. I like Jimmy Maddox at Miller Grove. Salem's got the 2028 kid, Anwar Mollett, who's going to be a really good player, I think. The guy we touched on earlier, Vincent Cray, right, over at Drew Charter. And then Redan as our man Amari that we talked about earlier. It's like every night you got some dude that could just go off and just have one of those nights that you get beat when you shouldn't or don't expect to. And that's a good pick. That's a real good pick. So, but I want to thank Coach Watkins again for joining us here today, taking the time to talk with us. I had fun with this. This was exciting to me, just kind of reflect on June and talk about players and what we saw. And obviously there's a million more guys we could have talked about, and we will in the future and future episodes. But pay attention online. We'll put our next Swish or Miss topic out there for next week. And don't forget to follow us. You can find me, Swish Scouting, at Swish_Scout on Twitter. And where can we find Baseline to Sideline, Alfonso?
Alfonso, it'll be BTS_report on X, and certainly on IG BTS report. And certainly, Matt, I appreciate us being able to get this off. And Coach Watkins, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to the growth of 4-point play. I'm sure this is going to grow very quickly, especially in our state.
All right, I appreciate that greatly. And again, follow us, find us, and we'll see you next week on episode 2 of 4-Point Play. See you on the court.